The downtown cafe was alive with the usual weekend energy. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mixing with the soft hum of conversation and the occasional clink of ceramic mugs. Outside, the sun shone gently through the large glass windows, casting warm patches of light on the polished wooden floor. For most of the customers, it was just another ordinary Saturday, until the calm was about to shatter in the most unexpected way. At one corner of the cafe sat a golden retriever named Luna, her thick fur glowing softly under the sunlight. Luna was calm, composed, and clearly well-loved. She rested patiently, her big brown eyes watching the room with quiet curiosity. The cafe's regulars had long grown fond of her gentle presence. Tied loosely to the chair beside a small table, she waited quietly for her owner to return. Some customers smiled at her. Others whispered kind words when they passed by. Luna wasn't just any dog. There was something special about her. She carried herself with a certain dignity, as if she knew she was more than just a pet. Despite the noise and hustle around her, she stayed calm, her tail wagging softly every now and then. The staff at the cafe knew better than to bother her. She was part of the ambience here, a quiet companion to those who needed a moment of peace. However, not everyone appreciated Luna's presence. Near the back of the cafe, two young men sat together, their expressions filled with boredom and restlessness. They whispered and glanced around, their eyes settling on Luna. "Why is there a dog here anyway?" One muttered loudly enough for those nearby to hear. The other snorted in agreement. For them, the peaceful dog was nothing but a distraction, something to be disrupted. Their whispers quickly turned into reckless ideas. One of the men reached for a cold soda bottle on their table, cracking it open with a sharp hiss. With a slight grin, he stood up and approached Luna. The other followed, recording the moment on his phone, eager to capture whatever prank was about to unfold. Luna barely had time to react. Without warning, the soda was poured over her golden fur. The cold liquid soaked her from head to tail, dripping down her sides and splashing onto the floor. Her eyes widened in shock as she shook herself, trying to rid herself of the sticky mess. A few patrons gasped. The sudden noise and chaos broke the cafe's peaceful rhythm. At once, silence fell like a heavy curtain. The laughter of the two pranksters echoed sharply in the room, but many faces showed shock and disapproval. A young barista rushed over with a handful of napkins, gently wiping the soda off Luna's fur. The dog trembled slightly, clearly distressed, and the room watched helplessly, unsure of how to respond. What started as a quiet, sunny afternoon had turned into something far more serious. No one knew how the situation would unfold, but one thing was certain: everything was about to change. The moment the soda poured over Luna's golden fur, the atmosphere in the cafe shifted dramatically. The laughter of the two young men who had caused the mess echoed unnervingly, clashing sharply with the stunned silence that quickly spread among the other customers. People exchanged uneasy glances, uncertain how to react to the sudden act of cruelty. The two pranksters, feeling a rush of reckless excitement, didn't seem to care about the dog's distress. The man holding the phone filmed Luna's soaked fur dripping with sticky soda, chuckling as he captured every moment. His friend, still grinning, made a snide comment loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. "It's just a dog. What's the big deal?" But the truth was, it was a very big deal. Luna's soft brown eyes blinked rapidly, confused and hurt by the unexpected attack. She shook her head vigorously, trying to rid herself of the sticky liquid that clung to her coat. Her body trembled slightly, not just from the cold but from the shock of what had happened. Some customers, initially frozen, began to murmur quietly to one another. A few whispered about calling the cafe manager or even animal control. The barista who had rushed over with napkins knelt beside Luna, gently patting the dog's head and softly apologizing as if the dog could understand. "It's okay, Luna. We'll fix this." Despite the growing discomfort in the room, the two men remained unfazed. Their laughter grew louder, emboldened by the cameras capturing the scene for social media. One of them raised his soda bottle and mockingly toasted the dog, drawing more disapproving looks from around the cafe. Then, unexpectedly, a woman sitting nearby stood up, her face flushed with anger. "That's enough," she said firmly, stepping toward the men. "Do you even realize how cruel that was? You embarrassed that poor animal." Her voice was calm, but edged with disappointment. The pranksters scoffed and waved her off, calling her too sensitive. The tension between the small group escalated quickly. Some bystanders began to take sides, some defending the woman's outrage, others avoiding the conflict altogether. Meanwhile, Luna sat quietly, her eyes darting between the people around her. The soda had left her coat sticky and uncomfortable. A few drops had even splashed onto the floor, creating a small, sticky puddle that a waiter quickly wiped up. The dog's usually cheerful demeanor was replaced by a subtle sadness that everyone in the cafe could feel. The incident was quickly turning from a simple prank into something far more serious. The cafe's usual warmth had been replaced by a cold sense of unease. People whispered about what should happen next. Some wanted the men removed immediately. Others hoped for the owner's return, sensing that whoever Luna belonged to might not take this lightly. And then, just as the tension reached its peak, the cafe door opened again, letting in a fresh breeze and a new presence, one that would change everything. The cafe fell into a tense hush as the door swung open. A tall man stepped inside, his presence commanding the room without a word. His eyes scanned the scene instantly, landing first on the golden retriever, then on the two young men who had just poured soda over her. The air felt heavier, charged with anticipation. Some customers whispered hurriedly to one another. Could it really be him? Sebastian Klein. The name spread like wildfire. Sebastian Klein was one of the city's most reclusive billionaires, a tech genius who rarely appeared in public. His face was familiar from magazine covers and headlines, but seeing him in person was a rare event that left everyone speechless. Sebastian's sharp eyes softened as he knelt beside Luna. He carefully brushed a sodden strand of fur away from her face and gently ran his hand along her back. Luna leaned into his touch, her tail giving a small, grateful wag despite the sticky mess still clinging to her coat. The sudden tenderness from such a powerful man surprised many watching. Meanwhile, the pranksters, sensing the shift in energy, looked uneasy. The laughter that had once filled their voices had vanished, replaced by nervous glances toward Sebastian and the growing crowd of onlookers. Some customers pulled out their phones, eager to record what was unfolding, sensing a story far bigger than a spilled soda. Sebastian stood slowly, his gaze moving from the dog to the two young men with a calm intensity that silenced even the loudest voices in the room. The cafe staff gathered quietly, aware that something significant was about to happen. The barista who had comforted Luna earlier stepped back respectfully, not wanting to interrupt. The whispers turned to soft gasps as Sebastian's voice finally broke the silence. It was quiet but carried unmistakable authority. "What happened here?" he asked, looking directly at the pranksters. There was no anger, no threat, only a steady, calm demand for an explanation. One of the young men shuffled his feet, stammering as he tried to justify their actions. "It was just a joke. We didn't mean any harm." The other kept recording, his expression defiant despite the growing pressure. Sebastian's eyes narrowed slightly. A joke at someone else's expense, especially a helpless animal's, isn't a joke at all, he said quietly. His words settled over the room like a slow but powerful wave. At that moment, a few customers who had been silent observers found their courage. A middle-aged woman stepped forward and nodded firmly. "He's right. This isn't something we should tolerate." More murmurs of agreement rippled through the cafe. The atmosphere, once charged with shock and anger, began to shift toward unity and resolve. People felt the weight of the moment, how a simple act of kindness or cruelty could ripple through a community. As Sebastian looked around the cafe, his calm, collected presence was a stark contrast to the chaos that had just erupted. It was clear that this man was not only a billionaire, but someone who valued respect and decency above all else. The tension in the room tightened once again as Sebastian made a quiet call on his phone. Everyone waited, eyes fixed on him, wondering what would happen next. What came after would leave a lasting impression on everyone present. Sebastian Klein's arrival had shifted the entire mood of the cafe. The once casual weekend atmosphere was now charged with a quiet intensity. Customers who had been chatting or scrolling on their phones found themselves watching him closely, curious about what he would do next. Sebastian stood tall, his posture relaxed but unmistakably commanding. The soft hum of conversations had faded, replaced by a respectful silence. He reached down and gently brushed a sodden strand of fur off Luna's face. His touch was tender, revealing a side of him few had ever seen in the headlines or on the cover of business magazines. The dog's eyes met his, full of trust and relief. Luna leaned into his hand, as if drawing strength from his calm presence. Those nearby noticed the powerful connection between owner and pet. This wasn't just a casual relationship, it was clear Luna was deeply loved and cared for. Sebastian slowly rose, his gaze sweeping the room. His dark eyes locked onto the two young men who had caused the trouble. Despite his calm demeanor, there was an undeniable edge to his look, a silent warning that he would not tolerate such disrespect. The pranksters shifted uncomfortably under his gaze, suddenly aware they were in the presence of someone far beyond their usual circle. The man holding the phone lowered it slightly, the smug confidence fading as he realized this wasn't just any ordinary dog owner. Sebastian's voice broke the silence, low and steady. "My dog is not an object for your amusement." His words carried the weight of someone who had seen and done much, but refused to let disrespect slide. The two young men exchanged nervous glances. One muttered a half-hearted apology, but the sincerity was missing. The other smirked but quickly caught Sebastian's sharp glance and fell silent. Around the cafe, whispers grew louder. People murmured about who Sebastian Klein was, the billionaire entrepreneur who had revolutionized the tech world with his inventions and innovative ideas. He was known for being private, rarely stepping into the public eye. But today, his presence was undeniable, and everyone was watching. A barista approached with a fresh towel, kneeling beside Sebastian. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Klein," she said softly, glancing at Luna's damp, sticky fur. "We'll clean up right away." Sebastian nodded, brushing off the apology with a slight smile. "It's not your fault, but something needs to be done." His tone made it clear he was serious. As the staff began to tend to Luna and clean the sticky soda from the floor, Sebastian's eyes remained fixed on the pranksters. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number, his fingers steady despite the tense situation. Everyone in the cafe sensed the moment was building towards something significant. The power that came with Sebastian's calm authority filled the room, and the pranksters now understood this was far from a simple prank gone wrong. Outside, the soft sounds of the city continued as usual, unaware that inside this quiet cafe, a story was unfolding, one that would be talked about for days, if not longer. The cafe seemed to hold its breath as Sebastian's phone call connected. His voice was calm and measured as he spoke, no raised tones, no threats, just quiet authority. Everyone nearby strained to catch the conversation, hearing fragments. Incident, immediate action, security, animal welfare. The words carried weight, signaling consequences far beyond the prankster's expectations. After ending the call, Sebastian slipped his phone back into his pocket. His eyes scanned the room again, and this time the tension was nearly tangible. The two young men sat frozen, their earlier arrogance replaced by nervousness. The reality of their actions was settling in. Sebastian turned toward the cafe manager, who had quietly joined the gathering crowd. "Please ensure these individuals understand their behavior is unacceptable," he said softly but firmly. "I expect the cafe to be a safe place for everyone, especially for those who cannot speak for themselves." The manager nodded, relieved to have Sebastian's support. He approached the pranksters, his voice steady but stern. "You're going to have to leave, and you're not welcome back." The men protested weakly, but the manager held firm. Meanwhile, customers who had been watching now murmured their approval. Many nodded in agreement, their expressions showing relief that justice was being served. The cafe, once disturbed by chaos, began to feel calm once more. Sebastian returned to Luna's side, gently wiping her fur with a soft cloth handed to him by a nearby waitress. The dog leaned into his touch, her eyes closing briefly as if to find comfort. The sight was touching, a billionaire known for his vast fortune showing nothing but kindness and care to his beloved companion. Someone in the crowd whispered, "He's not just rich, he's real." That sentiment echoed around the room. Sebastian's composed response had reminded everyone that true power didn't lie in money, but in grace and respect. The pranksters now gathered near the cafe entrance, exchanged worried glances. They whispered hurriedly, realizing their actions had crossed a line. What they had thought would be a funny stunt was quickly becoming a public embarrassment. As Sebastian stood, ready to leave, a local animal welfare officer arrived. She carried herself with confidence, clearly informed about the situation. After a brief introduction, she spoke with the cafe staff and Sebastian, ensuring Luna was unharmed and that the pranksters faced appropriate consequences. The officer's presence added another layer of seriousness. It wasn't just about spilled soda anymore, it was about respect, safety, and standing up for those who couldn't defend themselves. The cafe patrons watched quietly as the situation wrapped up. Many had taken videos and photos, but no one wanted to disturb the moment. It felt like a collective lesson in kindness and dignity. Sebastian smiled softly at Luna and said, "Let's go home." With that, he led his dog toward the door, his calm power leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed the scene. As he stepped outside, the murmurs began anew, filled with admiration and newfound respect. What started as a cruel prank had ended with a powerful reminder. Sometimes, the quietest strength makes the loudest impact. The cafe's energy shifted again as Sebastian calmly approached the two young men. The crowd parted slightly, sensing the tension rising but also the unusual calm that accompanied Sebastian's presence. There was no shouting, no wild accusations, only the quiet confidence of a man who knew exactly how to handle the situation. Sebastian stopped a few feet away from the pranksters and looked at them directly, his dark eyes steady and unyielding. "Do you think this was funny?" he asked quietly. His voice was calm, but it carried an undeniable power that made the men shuffle uncomfortably. The taller one, still holding his phone, shrugged nervously. It was just a joke, no harm done. His words felt hollow in the face of Sebastian's steady gaze. The other looked away, avoiding eye contact. Sebastian's expression didn't change. A joke at someone else's expense, especially in innocent animals, is no joke at all. His voice dropped slightly, not in anger, but with a weight that settled heavily on the room. Around them, whispers filled the air. People leaned in, captivated by the rare spectacle of a billionaire calmly confronting disrespect without losing his composure. The prankster's bravado was fading fast, replaced by growing embarrassment and unease. Sebastian reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone again. Without hesitation, he dialed a number, speaking in a tone that left no room for argument. "I'm at the cafe. The two young men who poured soda on my dog need to be dealt with immediately." His words were precise and controlled, carrying the unmistakable authority of a man who had the resources and influence to follow through. A few moments later, cafe staff approached the pranksters and firmly informed them they were banned from the cafe permanently. Their protests fell on deaf ears, as the staff had clear instructions to enforce the ban. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of relief and quiet satisfaction from those who had witnessed the scene. Meanwhile, the animal welfare officer, who had arrived earlier, continued to speak with Sebastian and the cafe staff. She confirmed Luna was unharmed and praised Sebastian for his calm and responsible handling of the incident. Her presence reassured everyone that the pranksters would face consequences beyond just being banned from the cafe. Sebastian turned back to Luna, who was sitting patiently by his side. He reached down and gently stroked her fur, still damp but slowly drying. "You're okay now," he whispered, his voice soft and full of care. The pranksters, now facing public embarrassment and official action, made their way toward the exit. Their phones stopped recording and their laughter was gone. The cafe's usual buzz slowly returned, but the memory of what had happened lingered in the air. Customers began to return to their conversations, but the story had already made its mark. Many pulled out their phones to post videos and comments online, praising Sebastian's dignity and the cafe's swift response. The incident quickly gained attention far beyond the small cafe, sparking discussions about respect, kindness, and responsibility. As Sebastian walked toward the door with Luna, the crowd watched silently, many inspired by the quiet strength he had shown. It was a reminder that sometimes true power lies not in loud words, but in calm, deliberate actions. The cafe staff moved quickly after Sebastian's firm instructions. The two young men who had treated Luna cruelly were escorted to the exit with a clear message. They were no longer welcome. The manager's voice was steady and professional as he informed them of the permanent ban. "You're not coming back here," he said firmly. The pranksters protested, their earlier bravado all but vanished. "It was just a joke," one of them argued weakly. But no one listened. The customers watching nodded in approval, grateful for the swift response to such disrespectful behavior. Meanwhile, the animal welfare officer remained on site, calmly assessing Luna's condition. After a thorough check, she confirmed that despite the shock and discomfort, Luna was unharmed. "She's lucky to have an owner who cares so much," the officer remarked quietly, glancing at Sebastian with respect. Sebastian nodded, appreciating the support. "Thank you for coming so quickly," he said. "It's important to make sure situations like this don't go unchecked." Word of the incident spread fast, not just within the cafe, but throughout the neighborhood and on social media. Videos of the prank and Sebastian's composed response were shared widely, drawing thousands of reactions. Many praised the billionaire's dignity and the firm's stand against cruelty. The cafe manager received several messages of support from regular customers and nearby businesses, all applauding the decision to ban the pranksters and uphold a safe environment. The incident sparked conversations about responsibility and kindness, reminding people that respect should extend to every living creature. Back inside the cafe, the atmosphere gradually returned to normal. Customers resumed their conversations, some still shaking their heads in disbelief at what had happened earlier. Luna, now mostly dry, sat calmly beside Sebastian, her tail wagging gently, as if sensing the tension had finally lifted. Then, to everyone's surprise, Sebastian stepped up to the counter. With a warm smile, he paid for every single customer's order that afternoon, leaving a generous tip for the staff. "Today was a reminder," he said quietly. "That kindness should always come first." The gesture was unexpected but welcomed with heartfelt gratitude. The staff exchanged amazed glances, and many customers applauded softly. It was a powerful moment, proof that wealth wasn't just about money, but about using influence to inspire goodness. As Sebastian prepared to leave, he handed the animal welfare officer a check, a donation to a local animal shelter. "They do important work," he explained, "and they deserve support." The officer accepted the gift with a thankful smile. "This will help many animals in need," she said sincerely. Outside, the sun began to dip lower, casting long shadows over the city streets. The story of Luna and her billionaire owner had already become a favorite topic of conversation, reminding everyone that courage and compassion could change the world, even in the smallest places. Sebastian walked out with Luna at his side, both calm and composed. The cafe door closed behind them, leaving a quiet but powerful message in its wake. Respect and kindness would always win. Days after the incident, the story of Luna and her billionaire owner continued to spread. News outlets picked up the tale, sharing videos and eyewitness accounts that highlighted not only the prank, but also Sebastian Klein's calm, dignified response. The city buzzed with conversations about respect, kindness, and the unexpected heroism found in quiet strength. Sebastian himself remained mostly out of the spotlight. He rarely gave interviews or public statements, preferring to let his actions speak for him. But those who had witnessed the event at the cafe knew something important had happened, a reminder that power wasn't about wealth or fame, but about character and compassion. Luna, meanwhile, was back to her usual cheerful self. She greeted Sebastian each morning with eager excitement and wagging tail, as if thankful for the way he had stood up for her. The sticky soda incident had faded into memory, replaced by the warmth of care and protection she felt from her owner. At the cafe, the atmosphere was transformed. The staff treated Luna like a little celebrity, and customers came by not just for coffee, but to see the golden retriever who had inspired so many. The prankster's ban was enforced strictly, and the cafe's reputation for kindness and respect grew even stronger. The local animal shelter that had received Sebastian's generous donation also saw an increase in support. Inspired by the story, many people chose to adopt pets or volunteer, motivated by the message that every animal deserved kindness and safety. On a quieter note, some who had initially defended or ignored the prank began to rethink their actions. The incident sparked important conversations about empathy and responsibility, how even small acts could deeply affect others, whether human or animal. One afternoon, a young woman who had witnessed the prank reached out to Sebastian through the cafe manager. She wanted to apologize for not speaking up sooner and to thank him for showing what true leadership looked like. Sebastian replied with a simple message: "It's never too late to choose kindness." The story's impact lingered in subtle ways. It reminded people to stand against cruelty, to speak up for those who couldn't speak for themselves, and to act with integrity no matter the situation. For Sebastian and Luna, life returned to its quiet rhythm. But the bond between them, strengthened by the incident, remained unbreakable. Sebastian often thought about how that moment in the cafe had revealed something deeper, not just about others, but about himself. It was a moment of clarity, a reminder that true strength came from compassion. In the end, the spilled soda was forgotten, but the lesson it taught was remembered by many. The kindness shown in a small cafe that day spread far beyond its walls, proving that even the simplest acts could change hearts and inspire hope. And so, Luna and her billionaire owner walked forward, together, stronger than ever, a living testament to the power of respect and love.